Part 6. The Emotive Qualities. The fourth of the several classes of character qualities is that known as the emotive qualities. The term emotive means, attended by, or of the nature of, emotion. The term also carries with it the idea of movement of the mind or soul to action. The several general qualities composing that class are as follows: deficiency in negative, cowardice, lack of spirit, improvidence, hopeless, doubt, apathetic, lethargy, lack of ambition. 4. The emotive qualities: positive norm, courage, balance, temper, provident, acquisitiveness, hopeful, faith, earnest interest, ambition, excess in negative, recklessness, ill temper, miserly, greed, visionary, credulity, unbalanced enthusiasm, inordinate ambition. You are now asked to consider each of the above stated qualities composing the class of emotive qualities. Courage. Courage consists of those qualities of the mind which enable one to encounter danger and difficulties with firmness, without or despite fear. Those qualities may be summed up as heroism, bravery, intrepidity, valor, gallantry, daring, firmness, hardihood, stoutness of heart, boldness, dauntlessness, resolution, etc. It is a most positive quality, when manifested in its normal degree and form. The old adage asserts that faint heart never won fair lady, and we may add nor anything else worth acquiring. That courage makes one stronger, better, and more efficient, and therefore is a positive quality, requires no argument, for all human experience proves it. The successful individual must have courage to encounter dangers and difficulties, fortitude to endure physical and mental pain and distress, resolution to maintain his ground and to sustain his will not to recede, valor to lead and conduct his enterprises to a successful termination. Courage is that bold, resistant, defiant, self-protective spirit which marks the men and women who do things and who arrive. The deficiency in negative of courage is known as cowardice, which consists of want of courage to face danger or difficulties, extreme timidity, pusillanimity, lack of spirit proceeding from or expressing base fear. Cowardice is the quality of the timid, fearful, chicken-hearted, white-livered, pusillanimous, recreant, craven soul. It is one of the most negative of the negative character qualities, and always tends to make one weaker, worse, and less efficient. Its germ or essence is found to consist of the surrender to base fear, a craven dread and apprehension, accompanied by a lack of spirit to meet and combat that of which one is afraid. One may experience fear, and still possess courage to confront and combat it, but the coward not only experiences the fear, but also lacks the spirit to meet it and to give it battle. Some of the most courageous men freely admit that they experience fear, but they go forth to give it battle, instead of seeking to run away from it. The truest courage is of that which proceeds to the battle despite fear, in defiance of fear. Fear is the most depressing of all the emotional states. It has been called the mother of negative emotions. Its brood is a large one, including not only cowardice, but also worry, jealousy, and other elements of the black side of emotional experience. The Buddhists call it the freezing emotion, and treat it as equal in undesirable rank with anger, or the burning up emotion. They hold that fear and anger constitute the two great parents of the negative emotions. Fear and anger are the two great emotional unbalancers, fear being the depressing imbalancer, anger being the maddening imbalancer. Fear freezes the soul, anger burns up. Fear paralyzes the will, anger sets it crazy. The extreme phase of fear is that known as panic, the latter word originating in the Greek term indicating the mental state of those who suddenly caught sight of the god, Pan. Panic causes one to fly all to pieces, and to become irresolute, timorous, and disposed to flee before shadows or from vain sounds. Fear may be overcome by boldly facing it and gazing into its eyes. At the best, fear is a big bluffer. Call its bluff, and it retires from the game. It is a make-you-believe thing, a counterfeit. It is a lathe painted to resemble iron. Confront it boldly, seize hold of it, and its falsity of nature will reveal itself. Confront it with will and determination, and it will retreat from the scene, uttering fierce cries intended to terrify you who have conquered it. Bring into its presence its positive opposite, courage, and its negative shadow will disappear. Treat fear as a reality, and you but strengthen its power. Deny its reality, and it melts away into the shadow world from which it emerged. When you find it confronting you, and seeking to deny you entrance to the gateway of success, boldly confront it and deny its real existence, and it will fade away into nothingness, though bestowing upon you its hateful grin and baleful glare until the very last, leaving the gateway free for your passage through its portals. The excess and negative of courage is known as recklessness, which consists of a perversion of courage, and is composed of the elements of foolish daring, without judgment or prudence, foolhardiness, rashness, thoughtless action, precipitation, incautiousness, unwariness, action without thought or care of consequences. This quality undoubtedly tends to make you weaker, worse and less efficient. Being a perversion, rather than a true positive, this quality should be restrained and restricted, and transformed into the true positive norm of courage by blending with it prudence, reason, judgment and foresight. Balanced temper consists of a well-balanced, well-poised temper. Temper, in this usage, means disposition of the mind as respects the passions and emotions, particularly the passion or emotion of anger. The dictionaries give the two following antithetical definitions of the term, temper, viz. 1. Calmness of mind, poise of disposition. 2. Undue heat of mind, passion, irritation, proneness to anger. The individual of the balanced temper is spirited and animated, yet poised, self-controlled and balanced, firm of purpose, strong of spirit, yet slow to wrath. He lacks the spiritless condition of the deficiency negative, yet he also escapes the perversion of the excess negative of ill temper, rage, wrathfulness, proneness to anger, etc. Balanced temper is a true positive quality, and in every sense tends to make you stronger, better and more efficient. The deficiency negative of balanced temper is known as lack of spirit. The term spirit, in this usage, being defined as temper or disposition of the mind, energy, vivacity, ardor, enthusiasm, courage, etc. Lack of spirit is marked by spiritlessness. It is vigorless, wanting in courage, lacking in animation or liveliness of temperament, destitute of activity of spirit. It is not a state of being slow to wrath, but rather a state of abnormal meekness, excessive gentleness, morbid humbleness, submissive spiritlessness, yielding mildness, and is incapable even of righteous indignation. It is the sheep-like passivity and negativity, the rabbit-like submissiveness. It is truly negative, always tending to render you weaker, worse, and less efficient. It must not be confounded with balanced temper, for the latter is a lively spirit, well controlled, nicely balanced and well poised, while the former is weak spiritlessness, lack of courage, and lack of real interest and enthusiasm in life, and living a state of apathy, lethargy, and lifelessness of spirit. Balanced temper manifests the calmness of life, lack of spirit manifests the calmness of death. The two are polar opposites. Be not deceived by those who would persuade you that the two are identical. They are antithetical. The excess negative of balanced temper is known as ill temper, the term ill meaning contrary to good opposed to advantage, bad, evil, wrong, not in accordance with fitness. Ill temper is marked by a strong tendency toward anger, wrathfulness, loss of temper, rage, fury, ire, madness of temper, etc. Ill temper manifests in a greater or less tendency toward anger. Anger is defined as a strong passion or emotion of displeasure, usually involving antagonism and desire to punish, excited by a real or supposed injury or insult to one's self or others, or by the intent to do such injury. Resentment is anger smoldering beneath the surface, and often consisting of very deep and enduring anger. Wrath and ire are the feelings of those roused to bitter anger. Rage is a vehement ebullition of anger. Fury is rage amounting almost to madness. Righteousness, indignation, though sometimes blending into negative anger, nevertheless often belongs rather to the quality of balanced temper, for rightly defined it is a generous outburst of temper in view of things which are unworthy to be done. Anger, in the sense of rage, fury, wrath, ill temper, etc., is a very negative emotional state. It tends to make you weaker, worse, and less efficient in every true sense of these terms. The origin of the term throws light on its character. It has its sources in the Sanskrit term meaning pain, anguish, and in the Latin term meaning a strangling anguish, and in the Greek term meaning to strangle. Anger, strongly manifested, really is a form of madness or temporary insanity. The person filled with rage and fury really is mentally unbalanced for the time being. Surely no further warning against anger is needed here. All the best psychological, physiological, philosophical, and religious teachings indicate the danger and viciousness of anger. Listen to these statements: He that is slow to wrath is of great understanding. He that is slow to anger is better than the mighty. The discretion of a man maketh him slow to anger. Make no friendship with a man that is given to anger, and with a wrathful man thou shalt not go. So much for the morality phase, or the worldly wisdom side, of the subject. For the physiological psychological side or phase, note the following statement of Dr. Benjamin Ward Richardson. The passions which act most severely upon the physical life are anger, fear, hatred and grief. Of all of these passions which I have enumerated, as most detrimental to life, anger stands first. He is a man very rich in physical power who can afford to be angry. The richest cannot afford it many times without incurring the penalty, a penalty that is always severe. We say that a man was a red with fury, or that he was a white with rage, by which terms we seek to express the extent of his fury. Physiologically, we are speaking of the nervous condition of the minute circulation of his blood. Red fury means partial paralysis of the minute blood vessels. White rage means temporary suspension of the action of the heart, the prime mover of the circulation itself. But such disturbances cannot often be produced with the occurrence of permanent organic evils of the vital organs, especially of the heart and brain. The control of anger, like the control of fear, is most important. The ancient Greeks, and the ancient and modern Buddhists, hold that the man who has learned to control these two negative emotions is well advanced on the road to mastery, and that he who has mastered these two twin evils has thereby gained sufficient strength whereby he may easily overcome and master the remaining negative qualities. Here, you will do well to remember that, 1. Deficiency in negatives are overcome by manifesting and cultivating the positive norm associated with them, and that, 2. Excess in negatives may be overcome by so blending them with tempering, modifying, and harmonizing elements that they are transmuted into the positive norms associated with them. Provident acquisitiveness. Provident acquisitiveness consists of the feeling and desire prompting toward the prudent, careful, thoughtful acquisition of material, useful things tending toward the well-being, comfort and happiness of one's self and those in whom one is interested. The term provident means, foreseeing wants and making provision to supply them. The term acquisitiveness means the quality of acquiring, gaining, obtaining, attaining, procuring, winning, securing, earning, desired things, usually by one's own exertions. That this character quality is a positive one, cannot be doubted. Expressed and manifested in the normal and positive degree, it certainly tends to make you stronger, better and more efficient. Some so-called philosophers and moralists have sought to identify this character quality with its excess in negative, or perversion, and have either actually or tacitly condemned it as unworthy or even reprehensible. But, at the last, such teachings are seen to be a more or less hypocritical pretense, or a more or less vain pose, the lives of such teachers frequently being in direct contradiction to their teachings. It cannot be denied that, in the present state of human society at least, it is a worthy, righteous and normal course of conduct for one to seek to procure and provide the things essential to the comfort, happiness and welfare of oneself and those dependent upon him or in whom he is interested. Those who manifest such traits of conduct and character are commended by the general average of society, and those who fail to manifest them are condemned by public, or even punished by law. The above statements refer also to the provident and prudent acquisition of money. Money is merely a symbol of the things which it will purchase. In our civilization, money stands not for itself but rather for that which it may be used to acquire and secure. In seeking to acquire money, one is but striving to obtain food, shelter, clothing, necessities, comforts, conveniences, or luxuries, of many and varied kinds. It may be true that money is the root of evil, but it is equally true that money is the wherewithal, the necessary means or instrument with which we obtain the necessary, useful, and good things of life. Money is neither better nor worse than the things which it is employed to purchase. The evil of money consists in its wrong getting and wrong spending, in its misuse rather than in its use. In many cases, most of the revilement of money on the part of pseudo-moralists is mere cant and claptrap. There is no virtue inherent in poverty, in spite of the pious pretense to the contrary. Poverty is a curse, and the individual rightfully strives to avoid or to overcome it. The deficiency in negative of provident acquisitiveness is known as improvidence, which consists of failure to provide for the future, not only in the direction of being careless, wasteful, shiftless, prodigal, etc., but also in the direction of failing to acquire, make, gain, procure, secure, and earn a reasonable and just recompense for one's services, time and labor. Improvidence may consist either of a failure to get, or a failure to hold, or both. The excessive negative of provident acquisitiveness is known as miserly greed, which consists of either, or both, of the qualities of 1. Unduly greedy, avaricious, rapacious desire for gain and wealth, and 2. Miserly, parsimonious, penurious, stingy, niggardly hoarding of wealth or property. In either case, or phase, miserly greed overreaches itself, and defeats its original object of happiness and content. This, because, instead of mastering and using wealth and property, it allows itself to be made a servant of, and to be used by, wealth and property. Neither of the two negatives just mentioned meet the test of the touchstone of positivity, viz., will this make me stronger, better and more efficient? The positive norm of provident acquisitiveness, on the contrary, meets the test fully. Therefore it is worthy of being cultivated, developed, expressed and manifested by those who wish to become stronger, better, and more efficient, according to the rule of positivity. Hopeful faith consists of the mental attitude which is marked by a harmonious combination and blending of hope and faith. Hope is, the desire for good, accompanied by an expectation of obtaining it. Faith is, firm belief in regard to important truth. The mental attitude of hopeful faith is a most positive one, and certainly tends to make one stronger, better and more efficient, when manifested in normal and well-balanced degree and form. This mental attitude comprises that confident expectation which is one of the elemental principles of our master formula of attainment of hope, the thoughtful write and speak in words of praise. Spurzheim says, "Hope is necessary to the happiness of man in almost all situations." Johnson says, "Hope is the chief blessing of man, and that hope only is rational of which we are sensible that it cannot deceive us. Whatever enlarges hope, will also enlarge courage." Collier says, "Hope is a vigorous principle. It is furnished with light and heat to advise and to execute. It sets the head and heart to work, and animates a man to do his utmost. And thus, it is perpetually pushing and assuring it. It puts a difficulty out of countenance, and makes a seeming impossibility give way." Tennyson sings of the mighty hopes that make us men, and Coleridge warns us that, "Work without hope draws nectar in a sieve, and hope without an object cannot live." Of faith, the wise also speak in glowing terms. Street. Paul says, "Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen." A writer says, "Faith is the soul going out of itself for all it wants." Parkhurst says, "Faith is the heroism of the intellect." Hazlitt says, "Faith is necessary to victory." Elizabeth Oakes Smith sings, "Faith is the subtle chain which binds us to the infinite, the voice of a deep life within, that will remain until we crowd it hence." To many who have wearied of dogmatism and blind faith upon assumed authority, the word faith has lost some of its original charm, power and meaning. But faith has a far deeper and more fundamental meaning. Its roots are embedded in that universal principle of power, of which the ego or I am is a focal center of expression and manifestation. The positive individual has hopeful faith in the cosmic laws, faith in the powers that be, faith in himself. His faith in himself is the natural result of his faith in the ultimate meaning of things, and in the cosmic law. Coming in contact with power, he allows its forces and energies to be transmitted to himself. Feeling its inflow through the channels of his inner being, he cannot escape having hopeful faith. But his is not the weaker faith which merely believes and dares to expect. His is the strong, hopeful faith that knows. The deficiency negative of hopeful faith is known as hopeless doubt, which is marked by an absence of all that makes hopeful faith what it is. As might be expected, this is a most negative quality, and tends ever toward making you weaker, worse and less efficient. The individual possessing it is damned to a hell of his own making. He mentally creates his negative, unsuccessful, inefficient, unhappy state by his own mental attitude, thoughts and feeling. That which he fears, indeed, comes upon him, he supplies the mental pattern for it, the mold into which the material of circumstance is poured. He sets in operation the law of attraction, but in the wrong direction. This mental attitude should be cured, vigorously and at once. The excessive negative of hopeful faith is known as visionary credulity, which consists of falsy faith and falsy hope and upon unworthy objects, and in absence of valid rational ground and bases of belief and hope. The term visionary means, existing in imagination only, and lacking in reality fanciful, fantastic, unreal fanciful visions of Casalisa Enathea air, or diadreams. Credulity means, the quality of being credulous, i.e., of believing on very slight evidence, being unsuspecting, easily imposed upon, superstitious, gullible, etc. Persons of this type readily believe almost all that is told them, and hope to realize and cash in on such promises. They will believe that the moon is made of green cheese, if they are told so in the tones and with an air of authority, and they will rush to invest their money in shares in the Lunar Cheesy Supply Co., Incorporated. As someone has said, show them an egg, and the next minute the air is full of feathers, and he might have added, and they will begin at once to figure on the fortune coming to them from the sale of feather dusters. This negative quality is a perversion of the positive norm of hopeful faith. Of course, it may be transmuted into the latter by a rational blending and balancing of judgment and discrimination, and the development and employment of logical reasoning. Earnest interest consists of the application of the attention to objects or subjects which in themselves are of a positive and helpful character, and which tend to make you stronger, better and more efficient when knowledge of their nature and their application is acquired. Interest is excitement of feeling accompanying special attention, the moving power of attention, based upon feeling or emotion. Earnest is defined as eager intent, serious, fixed, determined, etc. Interest is the motive element of attention, and attention is the key of observation, thought, perception, reasoning, memory, voluntary action, etc. Earnest interest, then, is seen to be the positive moving power of feeling which is expressed and manifested in many important mental activities, and actions of the will. Earnestness has been defined as eagerness, seriousness, intentness and fixed determination in pursuit of an object, zealousness combined with sincerity. Pascal says, earnestness is enthusiasm tempered by reason. Bovey says, earnestness is the devotion of all the faculties. It is the cause of patience, it gives endurance, overcomes pain, strengthens weakness, braves dangers, sustains hope, makes light of difficulties, and lessens the sense of weariness in overcoming them. Dickens says, there is no substitute for thorough, easygoing, ardent, and sincere earnestness. Earnestness is illustrated by the adage, whatever you do, do with all your might. Enthusiasm is the sublimated form of earnestness. It is earnestness raised to its highest power. So exalting is its power, when directed by reason, that it sometimes causes one to feel that he is actually inspired by a higher power. The Greek term from which our word enthusiasm is derived, means to be inspired by the gods. The English term enthusiasm, means, enkindled and kindling fervor of the soul, ardent zeal or interest, lively manifestation of zeal. Without at least a fair degree of enthusiasm, no man or woman ever attains success. Enthusiasm is a soul power which inspires the individual, and which, being contagious, influences those with whom he comes in contact. In its normal degree and form, it is a very positive character quality. The deficiency and negative of earnest interest is known as apathetic lethargy. Apathy is want of feeling, privation of passion, emotion, or excitement, supineness, sluggishness of emotional feeling. Lethargy is morbid indifference to feeling and desire for action, listlessness, inattention, heaviness of mind and soul. This negative quality is deadening to the soul. It paralyzes desire and will, and consequently kills out all ambition and incentive to action. It renders one a living corpse. By all means inhibit this negative quality if it is manifesting in you. Its influence is pernicious. Destroy the foul weed by cultivating the sturdy plant of its positive opposite, earnest interest. Take an interest in things, manifest zeal in your activities, flood your soul with balanced enthusiasm. The excess and negative of earnest interest is known as unbalanced enthusiasm, which consists of an irritating, ill-adjudged, unbalanced manifestation of emotional excitement and enthusiasm. This is a mark of that neurotic, hysterical, superficial, semi-delirious flightiness which by some is mistaken for enthusiasm. This wild enthusiasm, however, does not rise from the deep places of the soul, but is a surface manifestation. It dissipates emotional energy which might otherwise be usefully employed. It defeats its own object by reason of its excessive expression, its superficiality, and its lack of balance. It may be transformed into true enthusiasm by a liberal addition of and blending with reason, judgment and discrimination, which serve to give body and consistency, depth and weight, to its otherwise volatile substance. Without such treatment, this perverted quality is quite negative in its effects, and tends to render you weaker, worse and less efficient. Ambition is an eager desire for success, achievement, power, attainment, preferment, honor, or superiority. Properly understood and interpreted, properly balanced and poised, it is a valuable quality of the individual. It is the insistent desire, the want to hard enough, that animates the men who do things in the world. Without it, there would be no progress, no success, no attainment, no achievement. The extreme form and excessive manifestation of ambition has caused the term to suffer some degree of reproach, but this need not attach to the term properly employed, and representing the right quality of thought, feeling and will. If, in your mind, the term has suffered by reason of evil associations, you may substitute the term, aspiration, defined as strong and high desire to attain something high and great, for this is the real meaning of right ambition. Ambition, or aspiration, is a positive quality. It tends to make you stronger, better, and more efficient. In the form of insistent desire, it is one of the elements of the master formula of attainment. Without it, the will is not called into persistent determination. Another element of the master formula. The deficiency and negative of ambition is known as lack of ambition. It represents characteristics antithetically opposed to those of the positive quality. Without ambition, there is no progress, no attainment, no anything worthwhile. Lack of ambition is negative. It makes one weaker, worse, and less efficient. It is a disease of emotion and will, and needs treatment by the methods of the new psychology such as are set forth in subsequent sections of this book. The excess and negative of ambition is known as inordinate ambition. Its nature is expressed by the term inordinate, which means excessive, immoderate, not limited by ordinary and usual bounds, rules or laws. Like all other inordinate, excessive, immoderate forms or degrees of qualities good in themselves, good in the positive norm, inordinate ambition is a curse rather than a blessing to the individual and to the race. It seeks to rule or ruin, and usually ends in the latter. History and common experience supply illustrative examples of convincing power. No further argument is required to point out that inordinate ambition is negative in its nature, that it tends to make the individual weaker, worse, and less efficient, in the end and often from the very start. Beware the extremes.